Woo! ATP, what it do with your boy Claymore? Rain back at you with another one. Subscribe to, excuse me, salute to all my subscribers. If this is your first time tapping into the content, I do invite you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hit your bell icon as well so you are getting alerts when all this content is dropping. So excuse the confusion I've been laughing for a little minute now, right? Teofimo Lopez. Ooh, man, let me tell you something. Mm, 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 mm. Won't he do it? Look, guys, I'm not going to even hold the words up, right? Teofimo Lopez is been a literal a laughing matter now for a good minute in the space. Great boxer, great fighter. Inside the ring, you just want a lot of potential at a minimum, right? Inconsistent at times, fighting to the level of the people he's in the ring with. If you're a great fighter, he seems to get it together and fight in a great way. And if you're, a less of a fighter, he'll fight a lesser version of himself. And you always wanted to see him be more consistent in the game. And you make excuses for him from time to time. If you're a fan of Teofimo Lopez, I see what your eye test is telling you in his best moments, right? That being said, laughable at the cringeworthy, antic-driven, narrative, racial, bigot narrative that he pushes and tries to ride on and sell it off to the boxing space as marketing strategies. And amazingly enough, none of it ever seems to manifest itself into anything great. No real opportunities, right? But then you have a moment when Turkey Al-Sheikh picks up Teofimo Lopez, gives him a 3-fight deal as an ambassador of Ring Magazine, offers him probably his biggest paydays. And you say to yourself, you might say to yourself for a moment there, wow, did it culminate to this? Did it work out for him? I mean, I thought he was an idiot the whole time he was doing it, but maybe the joke was on us. Maybe he's tapping into something that we don't want to admit is true, but the proof is in the pudding, right? The ends justify the means. And just when you think he's ahead of the game. He finally gets ahead of it. He shoots himself right back in the foot with more nonsense. The supporters of Teofimo Lopez will fail to hold him accountable and say that this is boxing. They will look back in a period of time when racism was at its peak, or when racism was all over the space. There was no respect for a certain race of people. And they'll say, we want to take boxing to when it was great again, right? They'll say that this is what boxing has always been, and that the current space is full of people who are soft or fragile. And it's a horrible state to be in. They want to bring it back to when, a Mexican could call out and say a racial slur to a black African American, or an African American could just go out and say a racial slur to a Mexican, or white versus black. When the racial tension was high, this is when boxing was the most interesting. This is a time period that they want to go back to. And what ends up happening is when they move like this, they enable and feed the spirit of ignorance that comes out of a person like Teofimo Lopez. When all reality, probably the biggest thing affecting Teofimo Lopez is the complete absence of maturity that a man calling himself an adult would possess, to be able to use his critical thinking skills to understand that even on the back end of not meaning what you're saying, gaslighting a community of people in the boxing space and all around the world who truly do align with those narratives you're pushing out there would gaslight and empower them to go out and carry themselves in a way off the strength of your name and the words that come out of your mouth, right? So the child, the small little child who maybe never quite got the attention he needed to get, or maybe he got too much attention. That 10-year-old, 9-year-old, 12-year-old, whatever age it was when he stopped growing in this department in his brain, right? In this part of his brain. When he stopped maturing and made a decision that this version of himself was the best version and he didn't need to learn or move forward or evolve or grow in any kind of way outside of inside of the ring, right? Gets him caught up in the situations that we see him getting caught up in. So what are we looking at now? Teofimo Lopez, John Boots Ennis passes on the Teofimo Lopez fight, right? As a lot of us who watch boxing, who understand and listen to the fighters and understand what a legacy fighter stands for and what drives a legacy fighter, understood that Teofimo Lopez did not check the boxes for John Boots Ennis. John Boots Ennis, a fighter who's been more than transparent, literally way more than transparent about what he wants to do in the boxing space, what he wants to do specifically at the 147-pound division. He's communicated in a way to where there should be no misunderstanding, no miscommunication, no confusion as to what he wants to do, which is unify the 147-pound division all the way up to undisputed if he can. And then he will move on to 154 pounds. This has always been the Ennis mission statement. John Boots Ennis mission statement never held words. And John Boots Ennis is a man who's not a man of many words, a man of action, and not really talking so much, but has taken the time to use his words wisely to communicate clearly where he stands when it comes to his boxing career. So a Virgil Ortiz fight at 154 pounds is an attractive fight, but not before and if he can unify the 147-pound division. A Teofimo Lopez fight, as pointless as it might be for John Ennis, could be a fight he would entertain if an opportunity to unify the 147-pound division didn't present itself to him. On the back end of Brian Norman Jr. calling out John Boots Ennis and having a verbal agreement, according to Brian Norman Sr., with Eddie Hearn and Team Ennis to have a fight and a unification title fight with him after he finishes fighting in Japan against Jin Sasaki, John Boots Ennis may be entertaining waiting around for that fight. In the meantime, fighting a Teofimo Lopez doesn't hold any type of reward that John Boots is interested in outside of money, which is a great thing. It's something he's not so focused on right now. He's more interested in the legacy. So he moves on and moves away from the fight. Of course, we have people in the boxing space, casual fans to the bone marrow, who couldn't fathom a fighter, a warrior like John Boots Ennis passing up on his biggest payday to potentially just go and collect another belt. Because to this generation of boxing fan, the belts never mattered. Legacy doesn't matter. They're more concerned about the bag and the amount of money that the fighter is making more than actually supporting or celebrating a fighter for getting the opportunity to accomplish his own personal goals and aspirations and dreams inside of the game he sacrifices a life for from the youngest age to be at a point right now to where he can do that. Instead of celebrating that, they'll throw shots and they'll ridicule and they'll scrutinize somebody who's doing something that they could never imagine doing for themselves. Let me digress and not go too far, right? So where does that leave Teofimo Lopez? Teofimo Lopez left outside in the cold a little bit when it comes to making the fight he wants to make, gets offered another opportunity Rumor has it, according to Dan Raphael and other sources, that Turkey Al-Sheikh has been entertaining, aligning his resources with putting a fight together between Devin the Dream Haney and Teofimo Lopez. Guys, you know Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney have a long history with each other. This fight is a fight the boxing space, I believe, would embrace. And me personally, I definitely would embrace the fight, right? It has a story to it. A fight that would probably happen either at 140 pounds to challenge Teofimo for his current 140-pound title, or some sort of a catchweight fight, right? Probably not at 147 pounds, just off the strength that the fight doesn't have a belt or anything aligned with it. So what's forcing Devin Haney to, fight at 147 pounds? And what's forcing Teofimo to do the same? Why should Teofimo go all the way up to 147 pounds from 140 pounds to fight Devin Haney with no actual belt or any type of, accolade lined up for him to receive on the back end of a victory? So that fight can get put together, but Teofimo Lopez, as he has in the past, is not interested in fighting Devin Haney. Has made it at 135 pounds. We went through the same thing. Teofimo found a way to not make that fight happen. You can go back to viral videos of watching Teofimo Lopez's father asking for astronomical numbers in order to make the fight, over $20 million, to a fighter who never even made $1 million, according to Teofimo Lopez, giving numbers that completely outprice the fight that could happen between Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez. But here we are right now in the present moment where Turkey Al-Sheikh is opened up an opportunity for that fight to be made. And Teofimo Lopez, in all of his maturity, is now on a social media campaign, tweeting campaign tour, expressing that he may retire, expressing that Turkey Al-Sheikh may have fired him, tweeting things and taking things off of the tweet, calling him a dictatorship or a dictator, spelled Dictator, being insulting, biting the hand that feeds him, burning bridges once again with the people he's supposed to have put his trust into, if not guide his career, offer him his biggest paydays. And here we are right now wondering if a fight is going to happen between Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez. Now, me personally, I think the fight will happen. I think Teofimo Lopez's payday is way too big for Teofimo Lopez to pass on. I think that Devin Haney is, more than game and ready to fight Teofimo Lopez, and it is what it is, right? But on the back end of literally insulting the man who's affording you and facilitating a space for you to make this kind of money in, Dan Raphael says the fight may be in danger of happening because Teofimo Lopez has gone on a streaming campaign now to disrespect and discredit Turkey Al-Sheikh. You can't make this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen. Teofimo Lopez, a marketing genius. That's I have to keep my stoicism about me, right? I'm not going to laugh at Teofimo. We're going to allow the space to continue to watch this ship sink itself. We're going to watch Teofimo Lopez continue to go antic and double down on his antics, insult a whole entire race and culture of people. We're going to continue to watch him go back and forth with everybody who manages him, from Bob Arum to Turkey Al-Sheikh as far as investments are concerned. We're going to continue to watch him paint himself in the corner, knowing that the only thing that's keeping Teofimo Lopez afloat right now is the fact that he's holding a WBO title and a lineal champion in that division. Understanding that Teofimo Lopez can only move but so far in his career right now, fighting the kind of fights he's fighting, that eventually he's going to have to jump in front of his peers. He'll have to jump in front of Devin Haney. He'll have to jump in front of Shakur Stevenson. He'll have to consider unifying with the champions in his own division, and the Gary Antoine Russells and the Alberto Puello, or whoever wins between Puello and the Subriel Matias, right? To the all the fighters in the division, Richard Hitchens, right? Maybe even fighters that are coming up to the division to challenge for championship belts, like Keyshawn Davis. He can only go so far before that reality settles in. It's not going to be Terrence Crawford. It's not going to be Jerron Boots Ennis. Maybe if he works his card right, he can line it up with Brian Norman Jr. after the Jerron Boots Ennis fight. Maybe if Brian Norman Jr. wins that fight, there'll be an opportunity for him to leverage his WBO title, 147 pounds. Who knows? But at the end of the day, the reality is going to show its face at some point in this situation. And Teofimo Lopez is going to have to face that. His fans are going to have to face that. The people who support and disregard and dismiss his disrespect to this boxing space as well as to a culture of people will have to face that reality. It will be what it will be. So where are we today? I have no idea. Maybe Teofimo takes this fight with Devin. Maybe he doesn't. I'm leaning towards the fact that he takes it. What else is he going to take? He's going to end up with top ranked Bob Arum lining up with a fight. He'll be back in front of the Subriel Matias's, the Gary Antoines, the Richard Hitchens, the Tiger Johnson. No, that's a 140-pound fighter in Tiger Johnson. But regardless, he'll end up in front of the fights that can be made on a local level. He won't be a headliner for a pay-per-view because he won't be able to afford to pay for the headliners, the dance partners that he needs in order to make these pay-per-view fights. And we'll see what that ends up turning into for Teofimo Lopez. It is what it is. Guys, thanks again for stopping by. Once again, remember, if you are not a subscriber yet, taking a moment to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon next to the subscribe button. That way you are getting alerts when this content is dropping at all times, right? It's your boy Claymore Rain. This is the ATP Combat Media Show, guys. And until the next segment, at this point, we out.